There is a very major corruption scandal in Kenya, and Kenyans have been thinking that the money from this corruption was going into people's pockets. But actually, that money was to save the presidency. Did you hear that story? I didn't think so. Stay with me and hear that story full of suspense that will leave your ears ringing. No doubt about that. But there's a very important reason why I'm bringing this up just now. Because, as regulars on this channel know, here we are all about understanding. You know, you cannot even debate effectively about something. For instance, about change in your country, if you don't really understand your country. Yeah, your points will be off the mark. Above all, you need to start by first of all understanding. And understanding, let us agree, is not always easy. In fact, it's really easy. Especially because many of us kiherehere, we think we understand, but actually we don't. Because when we understand, we will see very clearly why the country called Kenya is in such a mess today. And even more important, why the country called Kenya can never get out of this mess under the current regime. Indeed, it will be pata potea, trial and error, gambling, because even beginning to get out of the hole we're in right now, a very deep hole, will depend very largely on the person who occupies State House next. And sadly, you can never be sure, and therefore you can never know if they will do it until it is too late to do anything about it. Either way, please don't worry if you think you're getting lost. As usual, I will keep it very simple, basic stuff, so that we're all on the same page and so that we all get understanding. It is the only way for a better Kenya. And one thing I guarantee you, if you stay with me, you will reach that point where you will say to yourself, aha, I see it. Yeah. A very warm welcome. Twende kazi. Most serious corruption scandals are engineered right inside State House. That is a fact. But then, what are we saying here? We're saying that a major corruption scandal that every Kenyan heard about, and every Kenyan was very disgusted about, and some people even feared for their lives because of this corruption scandal. That scandal, the money did not enrich anybody. All the money from that scandal went into saving a presidency. What are you saying, Chris? What are you saying? I know you're very curious, and I know you're wondering what this is all about. And we'll get on it right away. Please allow me some very brief minutes to first of all honor and acknowledge our sponsors for today's show. Lemify. Now I'm sure you're aware of all the huge advantages you'd have using Lemify. You can send money to Kenya at the best rates and with zero fees. You can send without funding the wallet. You can send from a pay bill or a till. You can also receive money from Kenya, this time not sending money to Kenya. You can also receive money from Kenya at zero fees. And of course, Lemify has very competitive rates. And of course, you can still use my code, Kumekucha, which you see on your screens right now. and you'll be able to get an instant cashback. Yeah? If you're sending your first 50 pounds in the UK, you'll be able to get a cashback of 10 pounds. If you're using euros and you send at least 50 euros, you'll be able to get a cashback of 15 euros. And if you're in the US, for sending your first $100, you'll get a cashback of $20. I highly recommend that you try Lemify today, because they're big supporters of this channel, and that'll be another way of supporting what we do here on this channel. By the way, in case you're interested in sponsoring a show, you can see on your screens right now just how affordable it is. And of course, a vast majority of our clients have realized it is very effective, because we have been blessed here by a very unique audience, difficult to find anywhere else, all in one place. Right, this scandal. And trust me, it is very relevant to all the many problems we're going through in Kenya right now. Yeah, especially because of the following. Now, we have had two presidents who have come into the presidency, wajuaji. Both men had a lot of experience very close to the presidency, and therefore both men, very intelligent people, assumed that they knew enough, they knew everything to be able to run the presidency effectively. Well, it took both of them a very short period of time to realize vitu kwa ground ni tofauti. Things on the ground are very different. Of course, I must quickly add that one major difference between these two men is that their motives while coming to the office were very different. Okay, jijazie. There is more than plenty of evidence to prove that Mwai Kibaki came into office as President of the Republic of Kenya very determined to change Kenya forever, very determined to place Kenya on a new course in the right direction. And I will talk about the things most of us may not know. Number one, Mwai Kibaki released a lot of secret classified government information to the public for the first time. For instance, the top secret post-mortem on Agwing's Kodek was released by Mwai Kibaki to the public for the first time, which revealed that he did not die from injuries of a road accident, as had been widely announced, but actually he died from risasi wounds from a police rifle. Okay? Assassination. Now you'll excuse me because I'm moving very quickly. You can easily fill in the gaps by taking in other videos on this channel. Now on your screens right now, you can see a super fascinating photograph taken by Mohammed Amin that is actually evidence against the Kenyan government. Of course, the scene is Kisumu on October 25th, 1969, Kisumu massacre. This photograph was released to the public for the first time under the Kibaki administration. The evidence, of course, is that Jomo Kenyatta, the president, is under no immediate threat, and yet you can see his security boys reaching for bunduki. Okay? But let's stay on point. Very early during the administration of Mwai Kibaki, heads of parastatals arrived in State House with briefcases full of money. This, of course, was money taken from the accounts of parastatals, public parastatals. Okay, Kenya Power and Lighting, Kenya Pipeline, etc., etc. And of course, the people bringing in the money who had done it all through the reign of the previous president, immediate previous president, Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, had no idea what the money was for. And so Kibaki asked them, "Hii pesa ni ya nini? What's this money for?" "Your Excellency, sir, this is what we have been doing with the previous president." Kibaki ordered them back immediately to the offices to work and stay on their toes. This was a new administration. Kenyans were delighted at this story, which was carried in the press. Don't forget that story, because I'll come back to it shortly. And I will give you the shocking purpose of that money. Okay? And Kibaki was so serious about getting rid of corruption from Kenya forever. So serious that he put his corruption czar, Bwana John Githongo, a PS, bang inside State House. I believe the main reason for having his office there was so that he would move with speed, be able to get quick approvals from the executive. And then drama. Just a few handful of weeks into the Kibaki presidency, President Kibaki realized this thing is not working. There is a problem. His administration was so shaky that if it had been an individual from the mountain, he would have been called Wainaina. Most of us know the rest of the story. The former President Moi, who had been very ignored and who had been told, just go back to your shamba in the Rift Valley and stay close to your TV set and watch how our government should be run. That Moi was brought back as a chief key advisor of President Kibaki. Now, admittedly, shortly after Moi came in as an advisor to Kibaki, Kibaki's government stabilized tremendously. You know, Moi as an advisor also brought in his people, of course. And I'm about to give you the inside information of what Kibaki was told. Rule number 1, to run the country called Kenya as president, you need money, a lot of money. Remember the story we started with of the parastatal heads bringing cash? That is what that cash was being used for. And I believe those parastatal heads visited State House very frequently with those briefcases. No checks, just cash, millions. President Kibaki had of course chased them away with the briefcases of money, of course reminding them that they were all going to be carefully audited. Quite naturally, in case those briefcases of cash were diverted elsewhere. This is Kenya. And so Kibaki suddenly had a major problem. The executive needed cash quickly. And that is how the major scandal called Anglo leasing was born. Folks, it was to save the Kibaki presidency. Yeah. And you know the rest of the story. John Githongo was doing his job very well. Suddenly, he was in trouble. Things were happening. And this man has a conscience. Yeah, great Kenyan, this guy. He has a conscience. He refused to look the other way. And therefore he had to flee the country for his own safety. I hope nobody is asking, why didn't he go to the police? There is a problem like this in State House, bang inside State House. Which police station will you go to? Which one? Which DCI will you go to? Very important moral of that story. Before you change something, you must understand that thing very intimately, very well, so that you know how to change it, and even more important, so that you know what you will replace it with. Because if you don't understand it, you will not know exactly what to replace that system with. The system in Kenya, our political system, guys, is rotten to the core. Before we move away from Kibaki, there are a lot of other things about the presidency Kibaki did not understand. And there were very dire consequences. The 2007-2008 clashes. It is widely reported that at a critical time, when the executive would have made a decision to save lives, Kibaki said, "Wacha wapigane." What he meant is that let people sit down to discuss after they have finished their fighting. But of course, it was more than fighting. Kwanza in the Rift Valley, things were very bad. Lots of innocent lives were lost. Anyway, let's speed on. When somebody is incompetent for a certain important position, yes, they're intelligent, yes, they're learned, yes, they have experience, but to start with, they don't understand the job. When that happens, what can you expect to result? Only chaos. And that is exactly what we saw in Kenya during the presidency. of, incidentally, one of the best presidents Kenya has ever had, according to many people. And I tend to agree when I compare him to the others. Okay? But they did not understand the presidency. Now here is the root problem. Okay? The problem we have in Kenya is that the President of the Republic of Kenya has got something called override authority. Now, it is interesting that in our current constitution, we copied the American system. However, we left out a very important component in the American system, which has led to our current disaster. And what was that component that was left out, so critical, so important? Congress can override an executive order from the president, can nullify it by passing legislation. Can the same happen in Kenya? No, of course not. That is the root of our problem. And until it is corrected, we shall forever be at the mercy of the person we elect as President of Kenya. And that is why I am amongst the Kenyans who are rooting for a parliamentary system for our country. You know, in Britain, the Prime Minister is just first amongst equals. You should listen in to debate when it gets heated. And the Prime Minister is in the House of Commons. Hey, he is just first amongst equals. He is one of them who has been given a responsibility to run the country. Period. His or her powers are very limited. What mainly runs the country are strong institutions. And it has worked pretty well for Britain for a very long time. The current executive is of course very similar to that of Boy Kibaki. However, it is worse because it micromanages everything, using that override authority to overturn decisions already made by experienced people in the system, much more experienced people. And you can be sure this will not change in this administration. And therefore you can be sure nothing in Kenya will change until we have a new president. And not only that, we have a new president who is not another Kibaki and who is not another Ruto. Now that's a tall order. Don't you agree? Very tall order. Ni bahati nasibu. It's gambling. It's luck. Hey. Bottom line, the most important thing we have to change in Kenya is the system. Okay? That should be clear. You see, the major problem with having an authority in a country that is so powerful, that has override authority, is that decisions made at this level tend to have a ripple effect. You can make a very small decision, but the consequences are far and wide, and they can be devastatingly fatal on very many fronts. For instance, the decision to tighten collection of revenue, collection of taxes. On paper initially, it doesn't seem as if there's anything wrong with that decision. However, the major problem here is the timing. You're doing this at a time when the economy is how strong? How will it affect the economy? Those are critical questions that should have been asked before the 2023 finance bill, before people started playing around with the 2023 finance bill proposals. Because that thing finished the Kenyan economy. I think we all agree. We can see the results today. And yet on paper, if anybody heard about such a decision, it looks harmless. It looks like the right thing to do. That is the problem with somebody being so powerful and making decisions without giraffe vision, being able to see the real consequences of their decision, no matter how small it is. And ironically, some of these decisions you take when you have so much power, they can actually end up working against you. They can actually end up removing you from power. That is how serious this thing is. I don't claim to understand everything. I'm still a student. I'm still trying to understand. But today I've shared with you that little thing I've understood. And I hope we're on the same page with that one. And I hope we now see very clearly the root problem in the motherland. And it is very serious. It is a very difficult problem to get out of. Although admittedly, the more people who understand that that is the main problem, the better and the higher the chances that actually one day we are going to do something about it. You see, I've talked about the ripple effect. So what happens when the executive makes a decision and it boomerangs back on them and threatens their presidency? They're human. They want to remain in power. And therefore many crazy things start happening. We've seen this in Kenya. But there is also a lot more that most Kenyans don't know about. For instance, things which are happening in Kenya right now, a lot of them don't make sense to many Kenyans. They confuse Kenyans. And so one must ask, what is going on? What is really going on? What is the end game here? Actually, the answer to that question is extremely shocking. And it is contained in my very latest special report, which explains a lot. And I'm sure you appreciate all this is very highly sensitive information. You can see details on your screens right now on how to get hold of it. For only Kenya shillings 2,999. We have reduced the price. You'll be able to get this very latest special report that will give you badly needed answers and will also shock you to your bones. Because what it reveals, you will not believe. There is no way you'll believe. But all the evidence points in that direction. And not just one piece of evidence. Indeed, as the days go by, every single day, or at least every other day, something happens that supports this conclusion. This very shocking conclusion. Of course, the most convenient way of ensuring that you not only get this latest special report, but all the other previous special reports of the past and all special reports in the future is to get the Kumekucha golden key. You can see details on your screens right now. We're in the absolute last minute Lala Salama session of this. So if you're in a position to, please move with speed and secure for yourself the golden key, the golden pass, which will guarantee that you get everything Kumekucha without ever needing to worry ever again about payment. And this is a permanent thing. It's not annual. It doesn't last 2 years. It is permanent. Okay? So you'll appreciate that the price of only Kenya shilling 6,333 is very low. It is a really good offer. Because when this offer ends, this will cost 3 or at least 2.5 times more than this. So please rush and take full advantage. Of course, if you're not in a position, you can still get only this special report for the price of Kenya shillings 2,999, and that will help you solve that mystery. Okay? Which I believe is a key mystery to solve because it speaks to the immediate future of the country called Kenya. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.